hospitals have jobs to do, especially when it's busy. Also, did you happen to know that the 27th of September is the busiest day for giving birth? Guess what goddamn day I gave birth? 27th of December. And I can attest to the fact it was busy.
Really?
Right. And so, but the hospital have a job to do. They need 2 ticks.
Yeah.
A happy, an alive mother and a successful live baby.
Yeah.
We ticked those 2 boxes. The rest of it, off you go.
Yeah.
Because there's more people coming in needing to get those babies out. And I get it. But it's also doesn't diminish that there is appalling postnatal care out there too.
Yeah.
Some good, there is some really appalling. And there's a lot of fending for oneself now. And that's the space I was in, was suddenly physically wrecked after this birth. My immediate thoughts were I felt let down by my body. I felt angry with my body. I felt angry and let down by everybody around me for the one thing I've wanted since I was 15, to have gone so spectacularly craply. Yeah. I wanted to punch in the face anybody that went, you must be so happy. Look at your little baby. Because I was like, of course I'm happy. Well, actually, no, I wasn't happy. That's a lie. I wasn't happy. But I knew I should be happy.
Did you have people diminishing your experience?
Everyone.
Yeah.
Everyone.
But at least he's here.
Everyone. Even those closest to me.
Really?
I know it's awful, but let's not dwell on it now.
Yeah.
Let's not dwell on it, because look at what you've got. And that silenced me even more because I thought, yeah, God, you're a selfish cow, Anna. And I had best mates as well who were on their 4th round of IVF, who would have given their left tit to have had this baby, and a relatively smooth pregnancy, you know. So I thought, no, shut up, Anna. How dare you sound so ungrateful for the fact that you've got a baby? You know, he's a lovely, healthy little boy, which he was and is. But that left me in this trench of postnatal depression and borderline psychosis, where those first few weeks and months after having him, I've never felt as lonely as I felt in that time in my entire life. Genuinely contemplated life might be a little more smooth for everyone if I wasn't here anymore. I remember a very stark memory of lying in my bed at home, maybe 2 weeks postpartum, and my mother-in-law had come round to help me, and she'd taken the baby out, and I wasn't that interested. I really wasn't. I loved him. Yeah. I loved him from a primal level. Like, I didn't want anything to happen to him. I loved him. But I didn't connect. It was like I talk about it in Breaking Mum and Dad. It was like the plug socket had just been yanked out, and in place was just blackness. And I remember looking out my bedroom window and just thinking, God, is this the rest of my life? This soulless feeling. And I missed work.
Really?
Because it was the only thing. And I'd said, I'm going to have a year off. I'm going to have a baby. I don't care about work.
Yeah.
You know, we can just about afford to live. We're fine. I don't care. And I remember instantly, I wanted my job back, because I needed the one thing that I was good at, and that was my job. And I wasn't good in my head at being a mum. And I felt such shame, and I just was like, God, you're an awful human. Look at this. You want to go back and sit on, Lorraine couch or the GMB couch or whatever it was at the time. Now I know why. Because it's a whole new job we're learning to be a parent. And I was desperate for something that made me feel like Anna. Yeah. As I felt as un-Anna-esque. And all I was doing was getting this revolving door of people coming around, cooing over my bloody baby. And I'm stressing out. Can I breastfeed him? Can't I? Is he all right? Isn't he? I don't know what I'm doing. Like, I just, it was horrible. It was
Did you talk to
time.
anyone about how you were feeling? Because again, therapist hat on, were you able to see at all what was going on with you, or were you just... Because it is that thing, when you're in it and you're having those thoughts that were irrational, they are just louder than anything else, and anyone can say anything to you, but those words are there.
It's a great question. It took me exactly 9 days to give myself the advice that I knew I needed, which isn't actually that long. It felt like 3 months. But I will never forget it. I did talk to my mum, and she, a bit, but not really. Yeah. I couldn't really articulate how I felt because, I know people like identify with this. I was really worried someone would take him away from me.
So what was the advice you gave yourself after 9 days?
Reach out for help.
Really?
I'm stuck. I don't know what to do. And what I did was, at this point, we'd decamped to my parents' house because I just wasn't coping. And I knew my anxiety disorder was raging badly. When, at the time, I always remember, we were watching American Horror Story, which is never
never cheerful.
Yeah, never a cheerful one to watch. And I remember, and this is another thing, if you suffer with anxiety or low mood depression, whatever you do not listen to sad music or watch scary shit on telly.
Yeah.
Because it is playing into that emotion.
I have times where I'm literally like, I am not going anywhere near certain things. So they just feed into me.
Right, you got to listen to, you watch Friends, watch comedy, listen to your best, go watch Mo Gilligan. Like, do something that makes you laugh, or listen to music that makes you feel really happy. For me, it's more Chiba. Rome wasn't built in a day. It's one of the happiest tunes in the world, right? But don't do what I did. And I knew that I was feeling really anxious because I was saying to my husband, you've got to turn this off, you've got to turn this off. It was giving me full-on anxiety. And then I also remember on Facebook, a really old school friend of mine had happened to give birth to her third child the same day I'd given birth to my son. And I love it when people do. I think it's, oh God, talk about our tribe, women, mothers, just all parents in general, reaching out. And she was like, how are you getting on? I've seen, and I have never been so connected to one human being that I hadn't seen in 20 years in my life as I was in those 3 days. Her name's Lucy. I'm going to mention her because we still speak. She came to one of my Giovanna shows, actually. And I was like, and I actually did offload to her because she asked the right questions. And she said, how, and I was like, I'm really scared, I'm really scared. I'm breastfeeding. She's like, it's going to be okay. It's going to be okay. Like, this is it. And she was so supportive. And we'd got to my parents. I wasn't coping. I kept asking permission from my mum if I could bottle feed him because I was really struggling to breastfeed. And here's another symptom of anxiety or PTSD, birth trauma, everything I was experiencing. It sort of shuts everything down. Right. So that lovely milk was like skimmed water coming through those boobies. And I remember desperately trying to feed him. And God, I can't do it. I can't feed him. And also, when I'm anxious, I have a symptom called globus pharyngeus, which is where you can't swallow. Yeah. So I was like, my husband was trying to stuff Huel down me, like protein shakes and stuff and water. But I mean, I was literally, my mum was like feeding me shepherd's pie, like mashed up. Yeah. And I was having to eat it mouthful by mouthful with a gulp of water just to get something down me. So obviously, I'm not eating. I'm not producing any milk. My poor little baby is starving. And I remember, and my mum, and she breastfed all of us, but I'm very clear how I'm very pro breast and bottle. I'm just, that fed is best and I breastfed my second child actually, which I loved doing. But for me in that time and that situation, the breastfeeding was causing me even more overwhelm and more anxiety. And I remember my mum got up with me in the middle of the night and I was like, trying to latch him. Actually, the latch worked actually, funnily enough. And I was like, God, he's just like, and she just went, darling, why don't you just give him a bottle? And I was like, do you think I'm allowed? She was like, you need to feed him. And she said, tell you what, like, and I'd got, I think we'd bought some like emergency formula. I don't know why we had, but we'd had it. So she went downstairs, she fixed up this bottle and she came up. I remember we sat in her study, it was 2 a.m, it was freezing cold. And I remember putting this bottle in his mouth and suddenly, he's like a baby lamb, he's going at it. And in that moment, I just felt this, oh my God, anxiety has just taken down a notch. He's feeding. Okay, this is really good. He's looking in my eyes. And actually, I suddenly went, God, I sort of like you a little bit too, because you're not looking at me like I'm a terrible human being right now. And in that little moment, there was a little chink of light. And that's when I knew I need to do something about this. And I rang up my amazing friend and my consultant psychiatrist who's looked after me for many years. And I rang him up and I went, Dr. S., it's back. And he was like, what? I went, I've just had a baby. And I said, all my symptoms from years ago, of which he treated me to and medicated me for, and they're all back with a vengeance. And this is not just hormones postpartum, probably in there somewhere, but this is a full-blown anxiety disorder.